last year, I had a state senator on who admitted on air that martial law has quietly already been declared as of the middle of last year, almost a year and a half ago, on the Texas-Mexico border. The military has pulled back 10 miles off the borders as of 3 months ago from Arizona to Texas. They've ceded 80 miles into Arizona areas of the state to drug cartels, and the feds have put up signs saying don't go into these areas. Drug cartels in the area. When sheriffs that I've had on this show from Texas have caught truckloads of marijuana and cocaine, in some cases 3 to 6 miles, in both cases, one was 3, one was 6, over the U.S., Mexican troops drive over in armored vehicles and stop our police on highways with machine guns and say, give it back or you're dead, and they escort it back. The federal government knows this. So when even the liberals get giddy about the idea of a war and say, let's go help the Mexican military stop the drug cartels, do you understand that there's already billions and billions a year in U.S. government funds to Mexico and to Calderon to launch this attack against the other cartels that's caused this war to explode? So this will be adding gasoline to it. Now, if you want to put the military on the border, and next time Mexican troops shoot at ranchers or our police or our military, and you want to have warthogs, A-10s, fly up and down, destroying all their vehicles, I'm all for that. When Mexico commits an act of war next time, I say have Abrams tanks lined up. I say have A-10 warthogs, just 10 or so every state on the border, and in 10 minutes, they can have crews ready and launch those and fly up in any Mexican columns of trucks or personnel. Kill them all. How's that sound? You want a war that's righteous and good? Mexico's running all over this country. That's what armies are for, is to defend your border. Instead of having A-10s flying around killing innocent Iraqis and Afghans and people, let's talk about the real threat. The Mexican government is a narco-terrorist criminal state that abuses and dominates its own people. And the criminal banks that run this country are using the criminal families in Mexico to rule and to squeeze the good, hard-working people in Mexico. And they're sick of it. And this war down there is more about a rebellion than a, quote, drug war. That's only the surface. So I stand with the Mexican people who don't hate the United States and understand that criminal interests run the U.S. just like their country, and I stand for Mexico to have liberty. I'd love Mexico to get a Bill of Rights and Constitution, root out corruption. It'd be a wonderful place to live. It's beautiful. It's wealthy when it comes to natural resources. But Mexico isn't going to get fixed, and the U.S. is going to collapse right along with it if we allow them to send the military down into Mexico. That's our military being sent to back up the main drug cartel, the Mexican government, to secure their monopoly of the $500 billion in heroin and cocaine and marijuana coming in every year. Now, what's the real solution staring everyone in the face that would end almost all of this crime overnight? So many criminal enterprises have been grown through this and have been funded. They're going to find new things to do, but it won't be half as bad. What do? Do you send the military down to fight a bunch of people that are in plain clothes in a guerrilla war? And when the smaller cartels have bought off most of the police and the military, because the military, brass and the governors, they're cheap. They don't pay off their troops to not be involved in drugs because they want all the money for themselves. They don't share it. They're not smart in their corruption. The lower level cartels will pay off the police and military. That's why they can't be beaten. This is a nightmare quagmire. Not one of our troops should be sent over that border unless it's in an A-10 Warthog to open up on those armored columns. And by the way, you don't need to shoot a DU round to go through their armor. They've got non-DU rounds. They can use exploding rounds fired out of that Vulcan cannon. Do not fire DU down there. You do not need DU. You're not fighting T-72 Russian tanks with 7-inch armor. You can just fire explosive rounds or regular lead rounds at those suckers. Send them in. Send in 100 warthogs. They'll clean up that border in a matter of hours. And if the Mexican Air Force wants to get it on, send in the F-15s, the F-16s. Send in the B-2 bombers, hit their air bases, blow them to kingdom come. But see, our military won't be used for something real to defend our country like George Washington would do. You know what George Washington would do right now? No, our military's got to go pick on people thousands of miles away because they want to steal their oil and get their opium. Same reason they want us to now go into Mexico to back up their criminal government. Now, what do you do to end all this overnight? You decriminalize heroin and cocaine like it was 80-plus years ago. Let me see. They started criminalizing it by 1932, 33. So how many years is that? Yeah, you're talking 80 years or close to it. You could buy pure cocaine, pure heroin at the drugstore, and there were far fewer people on it because it was looked down upon. People knew how dangerous it was. But if you wanted to go kill yourself, go ahead. That's a free society. What did they lose in 33? What had they just gotten rid of? Prohibition. They couldn't. The corrupt cops, the corrupt FBI, the corrupt government making hundreds of millions of dollars in every major city. And that was back in those numbers off the speakeasies. It wasn't the Christians that got liquor outlawed. They were the useful idiots. It was the big distillers and the corrupt governments that wanted that. And when they lost their prohibition, you know, where they could make 10, 20 times what they could previously when liquor was legal, they needed something new, so they made marijuana, cocaine, and heroin illegal so they could jack up the price again. Who set up Skull and Bones? Who set up the CIA? Admittedly, the main families that controlled opium in this country. This is like ABC News. This is not my opinion. This is absolute fact. The drug dealers make the drugs illegal. The drug dealers want the drugs illegal. You decriminalize now. You don't sell it over the counter. But if somebody's an addict, they can go get a slip of paper from the government and then go get it. And then something else happens. They stop breaking in your house for your stereo, computer, for grandma's painting. All these pawn shops fencing all the stolen goods will dry up. All this scum will just blow away. I've seen the criminology reports. Over 90% of home invasions and thefts and carjackings and muggings are drug-related. You don't see winos out knocking people over the head very often for money. No, they can just panhandle because the beer's cheap. The whiskey's cheap. Let me tell you, if whiskey was $200 a bottle instead of $7 a bottle for that rot gut they drink, you'd have homeless people breaking in houses like a bunch of zombies. You see the crackhead zombies breaking in houses because that stuff's expensive. This is a scourge of crime. So no, Perry, we don't send our troops down there to secure the drugs for your globalist buddies. Decriminalize, Perry, decriminalize. And if you really want to be tough, call for the warthogs to be brought in. 10 A-10s per state, 20 miles from the border, the crews waiting in their shacks, the bombs, the missiles, the Gatling guns loaded, send up some Puff the Magic Dragon C-130s with the howitzers.